Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. And today we're tackling something I think a lot of people are curious about. Ever feel like you're trying to peek into the Akashic Records, but all you're seeing are blank pages?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it can be pretty frustrating, right?
Yeah.
You're expecting these profound insights, and it's just crickets.
Happens more often than you might think, but it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Right. Today we're going to explore why those pages might seem blank, and honestly, you might be surprised at how insightful the answers are.
Even reassuring sometimes.
Totally. Okay, so just a quick reminder for anyone tuning in for the first time. Think of the Akashic Records as this universal library.
Yeah, it holds the energetic imprints of literally every thought, action, experience.
Past, present, potential, the whole shebang.
The whole shebang, exactly.
And what's so fascinating to me is this idea that encountering those blank pages, it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Right. Like sometimes it's actually a sign there's something deeper going on.
Like the universe is giving you a little nudge to explore a different perspective. Exactly.
Okay, so let's unpack this. One of the first things our source material talks about is the idea of divine timing.
Have you ever felt like you were pushing for something before you were truly ready?
Oh, all the time.
Like trying to force a square peg into a round hole?
You know what? It's funny you should mention that because it's that feeling of like the universe is saying, hold on, not yet. You're not quite ready for this piece of the puzzle.
It's almost like, giving a kindergartner a complex astrophysics textbook.
Yeah.
The knowledge is there. It's valuable. But they're just not equipped to grasp it yet.
Exactly. It's not the right time.
And it is so tempting, though, right, to want to control the flow of information, to want to have all the answers right now.
Right. We want to figure it all out.
But sometimes the best thing we can do is just sort of surrender, trust the process.
Absolutely. Trust the timing of things.
And speaking of things that can impact our ability to access the records, the source also talks about how important our mental and emotional state is in the process.
Mm-hmm.
It talks about the need for a calm, open mind, being receptive. What are some things that you do to kind of find that mental stillness before you try to access the Akashic Records?
Well, for me, meditation has been a game changer. It's like creating this sacred space within myself where I can quiet all that mental chatter,
Yeah.
and really tune in to those subtler frequencies.
It's like you're creating that inner sanctuary.
Yeah, exactly.
Love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so now here's where it gets really interesting. Sometimes those blank pages, they're not actually an absence of information.
Right.
It might actually be a form of energetic protection.
Yeah, imagine suddenly having access to like all the knowledge in the universe.
Right, my brain would explode.
Right. It could be totally overwhelming, even harmful, if you weren't prepared to process it all.
That makes so much sense. It's like the Akashic Records have this built-in safety feature.
Exactly. It's for our own good.
Like parental controls on the internet.
Haha, exactly.
But sometimes the protection isn't external, it's internal.
Yeah. We get in our own way.
It's like we're unknowingly blocking ourselves because of these like deep-seated fears or limiting beliefs.
Absolutely. So let's say, for example, you're trying to access information about like your ideal career path, but deep down you're terrified of failure.
Mm-hmm.
That fear could create this like energetic barrier. You can't even see the possibilities clearly.
It's like having this mental spam filter that's like accidentally blocking crucial emails.
Exactly.
So this is a great reminder to really examine any potential limiting beliefs we might be holding on to. Like what stories are we telling ourselves that could be holding us back?
That's such a powerful question.
Right. And this reminds me of something I heard recently about the different levels of the ethers and how that can actually impact our ability to access the Akashic Records.
Oh, that's interesting.
Have you ever noticed a connection between your own personal energy and the clarity of the information you receive?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The ethers, those subtle layers of energy that permeate and surround us, they play a huge role in how we connect with the Akashic Records.
Okay, so it's like we're tuning into a specific radio frequency.
Exactly.
And if our energetic receiver, so to speak, is like blocked or distorted, then the signal might be weak or unclear.
Yeah, it's fuzzy.
So how do we make sure our energetic receiver is in tip-top shape?
Well, I think about it this way. If we're carrying around a lot of emotional baggage, negative thought patterns, energetic blocks, all that stuff is going to interfere with our ability to access those subtler realms,
It's like static on the line.
Exactly.
What are some practical steps we can take to clear those energetic blocks?
There are a lot of great techniques out there. Energy healing, chakra balancing, working on releasing those limiting beliefs.
So it's about creating a clear, vibrant, energetic field.
Yes, one that allows us to resonate at the right frequency to connect with the Akashic Records.
That makes a lot of sense. And, speaking of energy, I've also heard that our chakras can play a role in accessing the Akashic Records.
Oh, absolutely. Each chakra corresponds to different aspects of our being, right? Physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. When our chakras are balanced and flowing freely, it enhances our intuitive abilities and makes it much easier to connect with the Akashic Records.
So it's almost like we need to make sure all the channels are open and clear so the information can flow through.
Exactly.
It's like a symphony orchestra, where each instrument needs to be in tune in order to create a harmonious melody.
I love that analogy. That's perfect. Yeah. It's about creating that internal alignment.
Yeah.
And that allows for this clear, vibrant connection.
Okay, so we've talked about divine timing. We've talked about our mental and emotional state. We've talked about energetic blocks.
Yeah.
But there's another piece to this puzzle that I think is really fascinating. The Akashic Records, they're not static.
Right.
They evolve with us.
Absolutely.
So it's not like we're cracking open an ancient text.
No.
It's more like we're accessing a living, breathing database.
Exactly.
And sometimes those blank pages, it might simply indicate that our energy field is undergoing an upgrade.
Like a cosmic software update.
And during those updates, certain functions might be temporarily offline. So how do we know if we're experiencing a software update?
Well, you might notice shifts in your energy,
Mm-hmm.
Maybe your intuition feels heightened.
Or you feel a strong pull toward personal growth, transformation.
Exactly. It's like this cosmic recalibration,
Yeah.
helping you align with a new level of consciousness.
And during those times, it's important to be patient, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Trust that the process is unfolding as it should.
Yeah, surrender is key. Letting go of that need to control everything and trusting that the universe is supporting you.
This isn't a failure. It's simply a sign to be patient, trust the process.
Exactly.
And speaking of surrender, surrender is such a beautiful concept to me.
Yeah.
It's like letting go of the struggle and just allowing things to unfold naturally.
It's about recognizing that we are not in control of everything, and that's okay. Surrender to that wisdom of the universe and trust you're being guided toward your highest good.
I love that perspective. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, we've been talking a lot about accessing the Akashic Records, but it's important to remember it's not a physical book, right?
Right.
We're not dusting off some ancient volume and flipping through the pages.
It's not in the library down the street.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how do we tap into this?
Well, it's really a process of attuning your energy to resonate with the frequencies of the Akashic Records. That's where meditation, visualization, intention setting, all those things come in. It's creating that bridge between your conscious mind and this vast energetic realm.
And sometimes that bridge might need a little tweaking, right?
Yeah.
I mean, our approach to accessing the records might need some adjustments.
For sure. Sometimes it's about shifting your perspective a little bit or trying a different technique. What works for one person won't necessarily work for another. It's about finding what resonates with you.
It's like experimenting with different keys until you find the one that unlocks the door.
Exactly. And even if you encounter those blank pages, it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
It just might be a sign that you need to adjust your approach or try a different key.
Speaking of different keys, we might be limiting ourselves by expecting the information to come through in a specific way,
Right.
like written words on a page. But what if the records are communicating through other senses?
That's such a great point. The Akashic Records can communicate through any of our psychic senses. Seeing, hearing, sensing, feeling, or even just knowing. We might miss those whispers coming through other channels if we're too fixated on just one way of receiving information.
So it's not just about seeing. It's about feeling, intuiting, just knowing. It's about opening ourselves up to the full spectrum of possibilities.
Exactly. Expanding our awareness beyond our 5 physical senses and embracing that vastness of our intuitive knowing.
And that brings us to a really important point. The Akashic Records aren't just about receiving information passively. It's about active participation.
It's an ongoing conversation.
So it's not just reading, it's engaging.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. It's about asking the right questions, setting clear intentions, being open to receiving that guidance in whatever form it takes.
So it's a two-way street. We're not just downloading information.
Yeah.
We're co-creating the experience.
Absolutely. That's where intuition and discernment becomes so important. You need to be able to distinguish between your own thoughts and feelings and that guidance you're receiving from the Akashic Records.
Oh, that can be tricky.
For sure.
Like trying to separate the signal from the noise.
It takes practice, absolutely. But as you develop your intuitive abilities, it gets easier to recognize the signature of that Akashic guidance. Sometimes these blank pages we encounter, they're actually a nudge from the universe to learn through personal experience.
It's like the universe is saying, go out there and live it. You'll learn more from doing than from reading.
Think about it. Some lessons can only be truly understood through lived experience. You can read all you want about riding a bike, but until you actually get on one and start pedaling, you won't truly understand the balance and coordination.
It's like the difference between reading a recipe and actually cooking the dish. You might understand the steps, but the real magic happens when you get your hands dirty.
Exactly. And sometimes those blank pages in the Akashic Records, they're an invitation to get out of our heads and into our bodies.
To stop overthinking and start doing.
Trust the process, even when we don't have all the answers laid out in front of us.
And embrace the unknown as an opportunity for growth and discovery. I love that.
Yeah.
So encountering blank pages in the Akashic Records, it isn't a failure. It's an invitation. It's a reminder that our journey of self-discovery, it's ongoing, it's ever-evolving.
And that sometimes the most profound answers come not from a book, but from living our lives fully and authentically.
And speaking of deeper learning, for those of you who are really intrigued by the Akashic Records and want to explore them further, there's an amazing online course that goes into all of this in much greater detail.
Yeah, it's an awesome resource for anyone who wants to really deepen their understanding and develop their ability to access the Akashic Records.
Absolutely. We'll be sure to include a link to that in the show notes. But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I have to ask, if the Akashic Records could speak to you right now, what message do you think they'd want you to hear?
That's a great question. I think they'd remind us that we're all interconnected, part of this grand cosmic tapestry.
Yeah.
And each of us has this unique and valuable role to play in the unfolding of the universe.
Beautiful. And a little bit humbling, right?
Absolutely. It's a reminder that we're not just individual souls on separate journeys. We're all part of something much, much bigger than ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And even in those moments when we feel lost or alone, we are always connected to that infinite wisdom and love of the universe.
I love that. It's a reminder to trust in the process, even when we can't see the bigger picture.
And to remember that we are never truly alone. You are always guided and supported, even when you don't realize it.
So if you're feeling stuck, lost, uncertain, remember, the Akashic Records are always there.
They're always there.
Waiting to be accessed. And even if you encounter those blank pages, don't despair. It might just be the universe's way of nudging you toward an even more profound and meaningful path.
Trust the process, embrace the unknown, and never stop exploring the infinite possibilities that lie within you.
Welcome back to our deep dive, everybody. We're exploring what it means when you hit those blank pages in the Akashic Records. And before the break, we were talking about how sometimes it's not about the information being missing, but it might be more about how we're trying to receive that information.
Right. Like, what if we're limiting ourselves by only expecting it to show up as words on a page?
Exactly. The Akashic Records can communicate through so many channels, so many of our senses, seeing, hearing, feeling, even just knowing. So it's not just about reading the words. It's about feeling the energy, listening to your intuition.
Absolutely. If we're too fixated on one specific way of receiving information, we might miss the subtle whispers coming through other channels.
That's a great point. And reminds me of something else, which is this idea that sometimes encountering blank pages is actually a nudge from the universe to learn through personal experience.
Like the universe is saying, get out there and live it. You'll learn more from doing than reading.
Exactly. Like, think about swimming. You can read all about it, but until you jump in the water, you won't really understand it.
That's such a great analogy. Or traveling, you can read all the guidebooks in the world, but nothing compares to actually experiencing a new place firsthand.
Right. The real magic happens when you immerse yourself in it. And sometimes those blank pages in the Akashic Records, they're like an invitation to do just that, to get out of our heads and into our bodies, to stop overanalyzing and start experiencing life.
Trusting the process, even when we don't have all the answers laid out neatly in front of us.
And embracing the unknown as a chance to learn and grow.
Exactly. The Akashic Records aren't just about receiving information passively. It's about actively participating in our own evolution.
So it's a two-way street.
It is.
We're not just downloading data, we're co-creating the experience.
Exactly. And that's where intuition and discernment come in. We need to be able to tell the difference between our own thoughts and feelings and the guidance we're receiving from the records.
That can be tricky, though.
It can be. It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack sometimes. But the more you develop your intuition, the easier it gets to recognize that unique signature of Akashic guidance. It often comes with a sense of peace, of clarity, of deep knowing.
So it's not just about the information itself, it's about how it feels, the energy that comes with it.
Absolutely. It's about trusting your gut.
You know, speaking of energy, this brings up another interesting point from the source material about energetic upgrades. This idea that our energy is always changing, evolving, and sometimes those blank pages might actually be a reflection of that process.
It's like your energetic software is getting an upgrade.
And during those updates, some functions might be temporarily unavailable.
It can feel a bit strange, unsettling even, but it's a natural part of spiritual growth and expansion.
So instead of seeing those blank pages as a roadblock, we can view them as a sign that we're leveling up, expanding our capacity to hold and integrate higher frequencies of consciousness.
Exactly. It's an exciting time, even if it can feel a bit confusing in the moment. Just like with any software update, the key is to be patient and trust that the process is unfolding as it should.
That's a great point. And it reminds us that we're not alone on this journey. We're always connected to a source of wisdom and guidance that's far greater than ourselves.
And the Akashic Records are a testament to that interconnectedness. They remind us that we're all part of something much, much bigger than ourselves, like a vast cosmic tapestry woven together by love and light.
What a beautiful image. So even when we encounter those blank pages, even when we feel lost or uncertain, we can always tap into that inner wisdom and trust that we're being guided toward our highest good.
Absolutely. And remember, those blank pages might just be a gentle invitation to explore different ways of accessing information and wisdom, to go beyond the limitations of our logical mind and embrace our intuition, our psychic senses.
To step outside our comfort zones and try new things, to really tune in to the subtle whispers of the universe.
Exactly. Who knows what we might discover when we open ourselves to those possibilities.
All right, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into those blank pages in the Akashic Records. And I think we've covered a lot of fascinating territory, exploring the different reasons why we might encounter them. But I think for our listeners out there who are actually experiencing this, it would be helpful to get a little more practical.
Absolutely, yeah. Let's talk about some tangible steps people can take.
So what can people actually do when they're hitting those blank pages? What's the first step?
Well, the most important thing to remember is patience. Don't get discouraged if you don't see results right away. It's not like instant messaging where you expect an immediate response.
Right, it's more like planting a seed and waiting for it to grow.
Exactly. You have to nurture it, give it time, trust that the information will unfold when it's ready.
Okay, so patience is key. What else can people do to create the right conditions for accessing the Akashic Records?
I think having a dedicated space for your practice can be really helpful. Find a quiet corner in your home, someplace where you can relax and focus without distractions.
Yeah, like make it a little sanctuary, right?
Exactly. Light a candle, put on some calming music.
Maybe diffuse some essential oils, anything that helps you feel grounded and peaceful.
Absolutely. Engaging your senses can really help shift your energy and create a more receptive environment.
And don't forget about intention.
Oh, that's so crucial.
Right. Before you even begin, take some time to clearly define your purpose. What are you hoping to learn from the records? What guidance are you seeking?
It's like setting the GPS coordinates for your journey.
I love that analogy.
The clearer your intention, the more likely you are to receive the information you need.
So write it down, visualize it, really feel it in your heart.
Exactly. And remember, the Akashic Records aren't just about gathering information, they're also a powerful tool for healing and transformation.
So it's not just a library, it's like a healing sanctuary.
Yes. Exactly. If you're going through a tough time or struggling with emotional blocks, you can actually call on the records for support in your healing journey.
That's amazing. And, sometimes those blank pages themselves can actually be a catalyst for healing.
Oh, absolutely. Just acknowledging that we don't have all the answers can be incredibly liberating.
It allows us to surrender to something bigger than ourselves, to trust that we're being guided and supported, even when we can't see the whole picture.
And that surrender, that trust, is often what opens the door to receiving the wisdom and guidance the Akashic Records hold.
It's about remembering that we're not alone in this journey, that there's a divine intelligence working through us, guiding us toward our highest good.
Absolutely. So, when we approach the Akashic Records with humility and an open heart, the possibilities are truly limitless.
So, to sum it all up, hitting those blank pages in the Akashic Records, it's not a failure. It's an opportunity.
It's an invitation.
It's a chance to go deeper within ourselves, to cultivate patience and trust in the unfolding of our journey.
To remember that sometimes the greatest lessons come not from reading a book, but from living our lives fully and authentically.
And for those of you who want to really dive in and explore the Akashic Records in more detail, we highly recommend that online course we mentioned. It's a fantastic resource for anyone who's ready to take this journey to the next level.
Absolutely.
And we'll be sure to include a link in the show notes. But before we wrap up, any final words of wisdom for our listeners as they continue their explorations?
Just remember, you are not alone. Trust your intuition, embrace the mystery, and keep your heart open to the infinite possibilities that await you.
Beautifully said. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the Akashic Records. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning,